Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Yonit Arthur. I'm an audiologist and coach. You are on the Steady Coach. And today I am bringing you something very special, a panel of experts to talk to you about all things related to parenting while recovering from neural circuit dizziness and other symptoms. So if you are dealing with PPPD, vestibular migraine, MDDS, or other medically unexplained chronic dizziness, or maybe even other symptoms as well, you're going to hear some very helpful and honest information today about how you might be able to navigate your journey as a parent recovering. So with that said, I'd love to introduce our fabulous guests. So we're going to start with you, Andy. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thanks, Uni. Yeah, I'm Andy. So a little bit of background about me. I was just sharing with the group that we're going to talk about obviously some really serious topics. But if I rewind a year ago, I couldn't leave my house. Yet today, just before recording this call, my son and me have spent hours throwing ourselves down a giant slip and slide and eating ice cream, and it's been a great day. So, like, I've had some really bad times, but right today I feel really happy. Um, my journey has been 5 years since I started doing this thing, which I got loads of names for: vestibular migraine, migraines, PPPD, migraine variant balance disorder as well. I got that once, so I got loads of those. But I only found Yonit and the Steady Coach about 10 months ago, and yeah, that's really changed my life, to be honest. And of course, yeah, being a dad through all of this as well is was what I'm here to talk about.
Wonderful. Thank you. And let's go to you, Tara.
My name is Tara. I found the Steady Coach about, I'm going to say 9 months ago, but I've been dealing with Mal-Day Debarkment or MDDS for on and off for about 4 years. I got my diagnosis of Mal-Day Debarkment 4 years ago. Pretty quickly, I was able to get into the doctors and they, in front of me, Googled it and said, I think that you have this. um, I was fortunate that it went away, but I had lingering symptoms similar to triple PD, vestibular migraine. I later got a diagnosis of menstrual migraine, actually, at one point, um, and then a resurface of my MDDS. So through that, I am a mom of two. I have two boys, and I have learned a lot, and I would love to be able to help anyone else to find little pieces that will shorten the path, maybe to finding you or to finding the tools to help them get to a place where they can live more fully again.
Thank
And I'm
you.
in the US. I'm in Washington State. I don't know if we're introing with our places, but
If you want to.
yeah.
Thank you, Tara. All right, Megan, let's go to you.
My name is Megan, and I first started getting this dizziness thing, this off balance thing, just over 5 years ago. And so I'm a mom to two little girls, and at the time they were 18 months and 4 years old. And so they were pretty little, and I had no idea what was happening to me. Just the symptoms were very all-encompassing, very survival mode. And so I am a chiropractor, although I am a stay-at-home mom now. And so I did not go down the traditional diagnostic route. And so although my symptoms would correlate the most with PPPD or triple PD, I went down the holistic route. So it was mold, it was POTS, it was histamines, it was all of those things kind of put together. And although, as you always talk about, Dr. Yo, biology and physiology does play a part, I did everything and stressed my body out so much more trying to heal and did not get substantially better. Yes, there were certain things that would improve here and there from the initial onset that was really intense, but nobody could give me an exact answer other than there is a reason that this is happening. And I don't think that, doing a bunch of additional tests because I feel like I have gotten that medical clearance, but I didn't go down the neurology pathway because I had enough very skilled people saying they're not going to find anything. And so I feel good about that, but I didn't have a set diagnosis.
Thank you. All right, Jody, over to you.
Hi, I'm Jody. I'm a mom of 4. I live in Colorado. My dizzy journey, I would say, started in college when I was 19 with the episode of PPPD, severe room tilt. And that was in 2006, 2005, I think. So this has been a long time. And we've had blips with BPPV since then. Some perfect storm health issues came about with autoimmune, where I do remember being dizzy in and out for that period. So much so that after COVID, I thought I had long COVID. So I started going to the doctors I was getting better, but the dizziness kept sticking around. Like that was my little leech, my health leech. Tried to go to the doctors, saw so many, and just remember being really irritated with the in and outs of being dizzy and not knowing where I was in space all the time. Kind of just gave up on it after going to so many doctors and trying to figure it out. And then I did have an episode where I sustained a pretty severe concussion. And the moment I came to from that, it was like triple PD, vestibular migraine, basically any type of dizzy was just met me right in the face. So after going to many doctors during that episode, I got the diagnosis of post-concussion syndrome. And further down the line, I got the diagnosis for vestibular migraine, ocular migraines. And I do associate a lot with triple PD. I just didn't get a diagnosis for that. So there's a lot more to the story, but the dizziness became chronic after the concussion, and I got myself kind of better before realizing it was NCD, before finding Dr. Yonit. And during that time, I was probably about 70% better through traditional concussion help. And I decided with my husband that we wanted to have a 4th child. So I thought, well, there's not a lot of information out there about being dizzy while pregnant. I guess let's just give it a go. So we took a little bit of convincing on my part, but that was a complete leap of faith for me, was going ahead and getting pregnant. And during my 3rd trimester, it did increase the dizziness. And that's when I came across Dr. Yo and figured out that it was neural circuit dizziness. So that was this year in January. So I think we're about 8 months in to this journey. And so I've had more healing than I've ever had through taking that leap of faith and getting pregnant through dizziness. So, and I just want to share for people here that I've been through pregnancy with dizziness and neural circuit dizziness, and also postpartum and during that parenting 3 children. So hopefully I can bring some knowledge and wealth of knowledge there.
As I said, the experts are here on this panel. Yes. Thank you. Janell, let's go to you.
Hi, I'm Janelle. I'm 38 years old. I was going to say 37, and then I don't know how old I am anymore, but I'm 38. I live in Ohio. I'm married for about 10 years, and I have a 4-year-old daughter. My dizziness started in April of 2022. So it was just overnight. I had a vertigo episode, woke up the next day, and everything was different. So it was started out more just like a rocking, but as time went on, and I think the fear set in, my symptoms really started to change. I was honestly, my daughter was 8 months old at the time, and for about 3 months, I was off and on bed bound during that time, and so it was very, very difficult. And eventually I went to a million doctors like we all do, or different opinions to try to find out what was going on. And eventually I came across somebody who diagnosed me with vestibular migraines, and then that one stuck. It just seemed like everywhere I went, they were like, oh yeah, you got a vestibular migraine. I had similar symptoms of like PPPD, MDDS. So when you would like Google, it would be confusing about actually what was going on. The thing that really helped during that time, I went to a VRT, a vestibular rehab therapy. And I think what he was saying to me is not necessarily what I was doing, but what he was saying to me of finally somebody saying, you're gonna get better. It's just like a miscommunication with you. He was telling me my brain and my ear basically are not communicating, or my eyes and my brain or something. But so it was just that reassurance of, you're going to get better. It's going to be okay. And literally, I think within a month, I was different. I was starting to like go do things more, but I didn't know what was going on. So it was still a journey 3 years later that I finally found you, Dr. Yo, in January. And yeah, it's just been life-changing, this going through what I've learned through you. And I can imagine if I would have known what I knew then at the beginning, I think it would have been a lot different. But no matter where you find Dr. Yo in your stage, we always say like day one is the day that you like realize you have neurocircuit dizziness. So yeah, I'm hoping to help and say something that resonates with somebody, just to let you know you're not alone.
Thank you so much. Wonderful. And last but not least, Tasha.
Hi, I'm Tasha. I live in the Midwest and I'm married, and I have a son who's 9, and we homeschool. So that's definitely part of my story. My symptoms started, I think, off and on for years. I've had different bouts of things, but really started Christmas of 2023, and went down the rabbit hole of all the panic and finding doctors and waiting and all that, to discover that I was diagnosed with triple PD and vestibular migraine and long COVID and multi-cell activation syndrome. So I don't really care about all that stuff anymore. I just know I have NCD. And yeah, I found Dr. Yo about 5, 6 months into my journey. So I'm about 14, 15 months into my recovery. And yeah, just super grateful and glad to be here today.
Thank you, Tasha, and props to you. You're the one who initiated this whole panel. So you're the one pushing for it. So thank you. And I think this is going to be so useful for people. Even just the intros, I was like, we could stop here and I think people would already find this useful. But we're not going to stop here. We have specific topics to cover today. And what I was hoping we could do is to start with you, Janell. And one of the things that you've talked about, Andy and Meghan as well, I'll come to you afterwards. What are some of the common worries that come up around being a parent with neural circuit dizziness, and how have you handled those worries?
So I think initially, I think always for me comes first is time, like time lost, time not spent, not present, not you're just not able to do the things that you're normally used to. I think, you go from just being a person that just does things, you don't think twice. But I remember back then, I even had a hard time like changing her clothes or like cooking meals. It was just some of those things. So I think probably underneath that really is guilt. It's not really about doing the things. It's just about guilt of I can't, or I feel like I can't do these things. Something I've really learned is, even though I couldn't cook the beautiful meals I wanted to cook, or I couldn't change her into the cutest outfit that I was preparing that day, or I couldn't go do the thing at the park, I was still on the floor with her, playing with toys. And it didn't feel like much. And even my brain was not really there, but I was still, I was still with her. And I think that's something that even when it feels impossible, you can still do that. And I think being there with your child is the number one thing that you can do. And there's nothing to feel guilty about. You're showing, I think even for kids who maybe are a little bit older, who can maybe tell, you're really showing them that you're also extremely, I think, how much you love them and how much your strength is showing through, that you're able to show up even when it's hard.
Yes. And you've mentioned that one of the things that you've worried about is wondering how your inability to do certain things or your discomfort at times might affect her negatively. Did you want to say anything about how you've handled that?
Yeah, and I think that's honestly something that's still ongoing too, which is great because it really has allowed me to reflect. I think regardless whether you have dizziness during, you're raising kids or not, you always kind of have that, or for me anyway, I know having a child really pulled out all of my triggers, my past traumas, the insecurities. They just kind of have a tendency to expose you. And I think then on top of dizziness, there's also additional triggers. So I think that through that, it has made me more compassionate. It's made me more aware about myself and how things may have affected me. And we're not perfect people. We're not going to do the perfect thing all the time. But I think it's really allowed me to see her not just now, but later on in life, what she might be like, what she might take from me. I think it's really been a beautiful thing. It's allowed me to just be more aware, I guess, be more aware of like how my actions or what I say or my showing up or not showing up does affect her. So um, it's something that I'm grateful for because it's gotten to a core of how I want our relationship to be. So
Thank you. I'm going to come to you, Andy, because you've spoken about something similar. And so I was wondering if you maybe could answer the question or expand on what Janelle just said.
Yeah, sure. I'm really I'm really grateful to be able to talk about this stuff in a past tense because I'm in a really good place now, but totally experienced some pretty dark times with a lot of the same stuff Janelle said. I would be feeling, when I was at my most debilitated, I just, yeah, like I didn't leave the house for a year and I was like beating myself up with all these thoughts, like, I can't go and pick my son up from school. I can't cook him a meal. I can't do all these things. I'm not working, like I can't provide for him. And I was really beating myself up to pieces because I can see now I've been a person that values, or my own self-worth is based around things that I can do, not who I am. So the fact that I couldn't do all those things was really affecting my self-worth. But then I'm lucky to see now that looking back, actually, there's loads of things. My son had a great time with me, and I was like stuck on the floor playing Lego or playing with soft toys. And actually, he talks about those times a lot, and that has been so important to him. And so all of that self-criticism and beating myself up and guilt, it was largely about things I was bothered about and less so that my son was bothered about. So you know, I'm able to speak with the benefit of, yeah, like I said, saying that's in the past tense. Because don't get me wrong, there were really difficult times, but it's great for me now to be able to I feel a lot better now that he keeps bringing up these times and the games we played together on the floor, because that's where I was. Um, and so that's really sort of made it feel a lot easier on me. But I think, yeah, that's all come through a journey of discovery, really.
And how wonderful that looking back in retrospect, as you are right now, you can share this perspective with people who might be on the floor right now, who might not be able to see it. And I just have to point out one thing you said that sometimes people don't want to hear. Guilt is a you problem. Guilt is almost never really about the other person. It's about you having certain expectations for yourself. And while, of course, it's useful to look at that and say, okay, there are some things here that are important to me and that I may have a lot of grief about and I do need to work through. Some of it is about expectations that actually aren't important. And the things that are important to your kids, like your presence, as Janelle was saying, and like your presence, Andy, as you were talking about, that's what they're going to remember, not, oh, was he upright and going to amusement parks with me?
Yeah, absolutely. And wouldn't have seen this so much at the time, but if you're in that place right now, I mean, I couldn't use screens, so I couldn't use my phone. So I was on there. He had my undivided attention, sat on the floor playing, and for him, that was literally the best thing in the world. And there was I feeling awful about myself because I was like, well, I can't go away from this game and cook you dinner or take you to swimming or whatever. But it's amazing what the kids take out of that time, and you may not be realizing it.
Well said. All right, Meghan, what's your perspective on this?
My brain always went to, I'm failing my kids. And I'm a homeschool mom also, so my kids were with me all the time. And we started our homeschool journey with me being dizzy. And so it's like all these, and Andy, I can so relate, these grand plans that you had or what you want your kids' childhood to be, the picture in your mind, I could not do that. And my symptoms were so severe, I also couldn't like hide it from my kids and just pretend. And so I would feel like I was just, failing them. And I think the bigger picture I can see now is I'm equipping them well for life, because life is not always so easy. There are challenges and there are trials, and they're learning compassion, and they're learning that plans can change, and they're learning how to do things on their own. So my oldest, she's now 9, and at about 6 years old, like this kid wanted to be in the kitchen. And I was like, great, you've got breakfast and you've got lunches, as much as she could do. And now she pretty much makes breakfast and lunch for her and snacks and her younger sister, who one day goes, I said, did you eat lunch? And she goes, nobody made me food. And so she's so used to everybody making her food. And, that I realized that I was not failing them. And they had a lot of time, like you said, Andy, with me, really building into them, because I couldn't do much else. And we've had slow time at home, and we've gardened together. And I had to do a lot of, like, I got like parenting from the couch and homeschool from the couch, because of like, okay, we've got to get this done, but I'm going to sit here. And they would just grab their books. And we actually still do a lot of homeschool on the couch, just because it's really comfy. And they're around me, and I can help one with this and one with that, and we can do read alouds, and we can listen to podcasts and audiobooks. And I've told my husband so often, like, I'm failing the kids, I'm a horrible mom. And he's like, no, you're not. Look at what our kids know. They can make friends. They can see somebody else hurting. Like, there's all of these benefits that I'm not saying the mom guilt doesn't still kick in sometimes, but like I've asked them in a very age appropriate way, essentially, like, do you feel like you're missing out? Like, how's your childhood, kind of a thing? And they're like, we love it. Like they have no idea. And my husband's able to do some of the more fun things. I did go to the amusement park 3 times with neural circuit dizziness, and I'm like melting on the asphalt. Like this is not smart. I don't have to do this. Like, it's an act of self-compassion to be like, that's not for me right now. It's not enjoyable without dizziness for me. So my husband can do those kind of more fun things with them, but they still are experiencing life, and they're not missing out, and they are still learning. And even though I feel like my homeschool is maybe not up to par, they are still above grade level on many things. So clearly what we're doing is working, because we do so much family, just as our whole family. My husband works all day. Like the girls and I are like a little pod. And when my dizziness was more intense, and when they were younger, I would have to set up a lot. Cute. I had to set up a lot of rest time. I rested a lot. There's things I couldn't do. We all had quiet time for 2 hours every day. They went and did their quiet activity. I got just quiet time for myself. So I had to bring in a lot of rest. But we just like really did life, and still do, as kind of this unit. And I don't feel that they are missing out on things. And especially as I've been able to do more, we can do more. They're not missing out, but there's a lot of things we still choose not to do. And our life intentionally stays a little slower, because we realize that's great. And when I asked my daughters, my oldest gave an answer. I said, okay, I'm going to teach on this parenting panel, what do you want me to say? And she like was kind of going through, and she goes, and we have a really slow life and we love it. Like that was the end. And I was like, great. So you don't know any different, but you love it. That's awesome. So that was kind of, as they've gotten older, they can speak more to it. And I can now say that my worries of failing them, because it shouldn't have been a worry, because I always had in my mind, like, what are our family values, kind of what's our mission, why are we doing things? Why am I homeschooling? Because it could have been so easy to not. Why am I doing this? I think if you keep in your mind what those family values are, and you can do as much as you can within balance, you still need the rest, but you're doing as much as you can and you're still focusing on those, you're not going to miss that mark.
Thank you, Meghan. All three of you have spoken about guilt. So I'm going to bring us to Jody, who has more to say about guilt. Do you like that, Jody, being identified as the guilt
Yeah, bring it
expert?
on. I like the guilt. So my life is like the opposite of Meghan's. We have year-round sports. I've got two, all my kids are heavily involved in activities, and it's always been like that. We've got 2 year-round swimmers. My son's 13, 10, and then my daughter is 7, and then my baby is 4 months old. And my daughter does year-round competitive dance, which all involves traveling and hotels. So I've had this lifestyle even with Dizzy before. It picked up a lot through the pregnancy. And so I've had ways of kind of, back then I didn't know what to do. So I had ways of coping, VRT, vision, all these things. So the guilt can creep in. The guilt for me with after learning I had NCD was there were some people that said, hey, slowing down actually works for me. And I thought, okay, I'm going to like breathe here and I'm going to slow down. I'm going to take this postpartum period. I'm going to slow down. And the ADHD person inside of me was like screaming. So I thought, okay, how can I make this NCD recovery work for me through the guilt of saying like, well, I don't think I can slow down. So this might look a little different for me, and just letting go of the whole, I'm going to have to like meditate and lay down during the day. I can't. So in order to get it to work for me, I just kind of did a perspective shift, and I utilized my kid's busy life to keep me going, which was one helpful thing. And I thought, there are many times I thought I would just probably be at home on the ground in my bed, not wanting to do anything. But my kids are like, what's for dinner? After I had like a mental breakdown in my bathroom crying, they're just like, oh, that's great. You're crying. What's for dinner? Please get up. So, and having that mindset of just like, okay, we're going to make time where we can for emotions and feelings for myself. But in terms of the guilt, I think mine was a little bit of the opposite. I felt guilty that I couldn't slow down, but I used that to my advantage. I just kind of found the quiet moments for myself. But I know we'll talk about this maybe later, but the kids really kept me going. And I think that kept me on a livable space within my life. So I was able to get things done, albeit very, very, very uncomfortable. I will say postpartum, you can't really get out and do a lot of things because you're physically recovering. So for me and anyone out there listening who has NCD, but they're kind of more high strung or they have an ADHD tendency, being true to myself was just getting her in her stroller and taking her for walks and listening to Steady Coach success stories, like something to keep my mind busy, because it was really craving that, and not feeling guilty that I didn't really enjoy sitting down too much. Since then I've learned to just appreciate the quiet moments. But for me, that's where my guilt kind of landed.
Yeah, you had mentioned that you were in kind of a weird spot reconciling the fact that obviously you might also feel guilty, but at the same time you've mentioned that actually having kids has helped you and kept you from some of the darkest places. So very,
Yeah.
very interesting that's how it worked out for you. Okay. So I wanted to switch gears a little bit and bring us to Tara. Tara, you mentioned that, so we've talked about guilt, right? Now let's talk about anxiety, okay? Because I think the guilt probably comes first and then the anxiety is a close second.
Yeah.
So
Anxiety's BFF.
yes, exactly. So you've mentioned having some very serious difficulties, obviously, with anxiety during this process. And I'm wondering if you can share more about what that was like. You've mentioned intrusive thoughts and a lot of fear, and how
Yeah.
you've worked with that.
So when I first got MDDS, or multi-debarkment, I was really fortunate that the first time I got it, it was just sensations. I had anxiety. I've always been an anxious person, but a successfully managed anxious person is kind of how I phrased it in my own mind. Never learning from, the things or finding tools to help it go down. So when I got MDDS, everything went up. And I noticed I was more anxious. I certainly had moments of breaking down with having the sensations and not knowing what was happening. Thank goodness there's more out there. I hope that when people Google, if they start having dizziness sensations, specifically feeling like they're not on steady ground, you start finding yourself, you don't trust anything. And your anxiety just goes through the roof, because if you can't trust the way you feel, it starts questioning like these core things of what is real. And I hope that there's a little bit more. I feel like there's more out there now than what there was almost 5 years ago. But the first time I got it, I had anxiety. I had struggles um, with navigating being a parent, with going to work, with the basic tasks, but it was manageable. And I learned nothing. And for some reason, I think because I was just managing and I wasn't particularly scared, it went away. And I think that's why maybe it went away. Fast forward to it coming back 2 years later, I had massive, massive amounts of stress that had happened with loss. I got married. I'd had a baby. Um, all of these things that had amplified and filled up my stress bucket. And when my system was hit with these sensations again, the level of fear and anxiety that it induced in me was off the charts. I found myself in a state that I didn't recognize as myself, of just lostness. I had never experienced a panic attack. So when it happened to me, I didn't even know there could be variations of panic. I didn't know that sensations of I didn't know a panic attack could happen without looking like, hyperventilating with a paper bag and maybe fainting and the things you see on TV. So having those things happen to you and not knowing what they are, everything amplifies fear, anxiety, fear. Your system just becomes so amplified that you just can't even think straight. So I'm hoping that with this panel, with the people that are sharing, that people can start to calm those feelings, start to recognize that our systems can end up in this space where we have so much anxiety, so much fear, we're so amplified that even our thoughts kind of become not our own. We don't recognize ourselves, and you can just have this domino effect that leads to dark, very dark places. And I want to throw out a disclaimer, of course, that if anyone ever finds themselves in a place that is truly, truly dark, of course, you should always voice that, reach out, get resources and help. For me, that wasn't that wasn't a place I found myself, but I did find myself in really, really dark. I could not understand where my fear was coming from. And it was all consuming. It felt like getting clothes out of a drawer for your toddler, and suddenly, like, the dinosaur from Jurassic Park is chasing you. There's no rational reason why I was having this sensation of the emotional floor falling out from under me, but I was, and I couldn't do the daily tasks that were just part of life. And I felt so defeated on a level, such a huge level. Like, who am I? How have I become this? How am I ever going to be the person that I was or need to be for my kids? So, a few things I learned were, of course, that your your system you can't find your way through that while you're in this heightened state. And it took me a while. Well, I won't say it took me a while. There are people that it's taken 20 years. So for me, it taking roughly a year to find your resources, which were huge. The success stories, huge. Doing your free program, huge. Like, each piece of everything that I found with the Steady Coach was monumental in getting just the littlest bit of space where my system could start to calm down. And each bit that it calmed down, the tools I was learning, more of my rational self was able to step back in and say, hey, we know what's going on. This makes sense. Let's try taking a nap when your toddler takes a nap, which was something I didn't allow myself before. I said, no, I've got things to do. I have a 17-year-old and a now toddler. I can't take a nap. They say sleep when your baby sleeps, and we all go, uh-huh. But sleep was huge. I am fortunate to have an incredible partner who forced me, literally said, you are going to sleep. He took time off work. He said, you're going to sleep and I am on duty. And that was a big thing also. Very, like, I would say that was also monumental, allowing myself rest and getting tools. So a huge thing also that helped, I just want to throw this out there, was the Dare book. I listened to, can you chime in with the author? I'm so sorry, I can't remember his name.
I am afraid to mispronounce his name. But his first name is Barry. So
Okay.
look
Okay.
for the
It's
Dare book.
Dare,
I can look it up.
DARE, but not the Dare drug program we all remember from school in the US. But there is a book called Dare that I downloaded the audiobook, and listening to this man's very soothing Irish voice
Mhm.
and the tools he is offering, explaining things like intrusive thoughts, um, in a way that makes sense. It makes sense that your system is terrified. It's not trusting the things it's seeing visually. I had triple PD come after the MDDS, so my visual stuff didn't make sense. My physical stuff didn't make sense. It makes sense that my brain is going, what's going on? Nothing makes sense. What's real? And the more things made sense, the more I could start to use the tools and bring the fear down. I hope this makes sense. Since there's so
Makes a
many
lot of
thoughts
sense.
and things we've all been through. I know when we're trying to get it all squeezed into a little compartment to say to people, it feels overwhelming. So I hope it makes sense. Um, I did want to add, just following up on a few of the things like Janelle and Andy had mentioned. I asked my son last night, my 17-year-old, I said, I'm going to do this thing. Is there anything that, because he's older, is there anything that you feel like I should say or that was important, you think that might help someone else? And he said, I said, what's the thing that you remember the most that you think would be helpful? And he goes, balance, which my husband and I chuckled, because we're like, oh, to be 17 and Of course, balance is important when you're dealing with dizziness. He goes, no, no, I mean balance. Like you balance the way that you balanced the things you needed to do as a mom. To which I like welled up. And he said, you still showed up. And I know that's not a choice for everyone. Sometimes it is so bad that you can't show up. In my memory, when I would show up, it took tears almost I mean, for months, it was tears every day. It took encouraging words from the people around me. It took sitting through marching band performances, feeling like I could jump out of my skin and be a lunatic. But I was there, and in my son's eyes, I just showed up. He doesn't know. Yeah, I shared with him things along the way. He saw the struggle, he saw the climb out of the darkness in a way that a 17-year-old can see it and appreciate it. And I tried to be open about, but in his mind, looking back, what he saw was a mom that showed up and he doesn't even have like a thought of all the things that I feel like I didn't do. It's just, well, mom, you were crying, trying to get ready. And you know what? Sometimes he was aware of that, but you still showed up for me and you were there, or we did this thing together. Yeah, we didn't go to Disney this year, but we took walks to the park almost every day and had these like really unique experiences as a family that we weren't doing before. Like what they see is so different than what we're experiencing on the inside. So overall, I just hope I offer a glimmer into if you can find a way to just keep moving forward, find ways to calm your system, find ways to make it make sense what you're going through, all those tools and pieces and information now that are out there, like you'll get there. It takes time.
Thank you, Tara. And before I come to you, Tasha, to share some more thoughts about anxiety specifically, I just want to point out something that you said, Tara. You mentioned Meghan. I think, Andy, you may have alluded to this. If you're watching this, I assume you are dealing with chronic dizziness or other symptoms, and you're a parent, and you are probably a highly conscientious and caring parent who wonders if you're failing your children. And I want you to just notice the level of thoughtfulness of people here on this panel who actually thought to ask their own children what they should say in this conversation. These are the kinds of parents that you are. If you're watching this, if you're here at this point in the conversation, you're still listening, the evidence is already here. You don't have to question that at all anymore. You are already a great parent just being here watching this, just like the people here on this panel. So I hope that alone, what I just said, can help bring down some of the levels of fear you might be feeling right now. All right, so Tasha, you said you wanted to share a little bit more about your work with the anxiety part of things.
Yeah, so I'll just share a little bit about like where I was and a few things that helped bring it down. So I've always struggled with health anxiety and honestly a distrust in doctors. And so this just exasperated all of that. And so at one point I found myself in bed, just so dizzy, had no answers from doctors. They were just kind of passing me around, and had some not great experiences with doctors who were really not compassionate. And so I was just spiraling like to the point where I was like, I don't want to be alive anymore. And my husband at the time, well, I'm still married. I shouldn't say it like that. My husband was working full time, going to school full time, and doing his practicum for counseling 2 days a week. So his life was crazy too. And he was just like, I'm just going to have to work from home. Like, I'm just going to have to come home and be with you. And I just thank God that I have a partner who is so loving and caring. Because I was, in my mind, in the pit of hell. I was just in a miserable, miserable place. Makes me a little emotional thinking about that because I was just journaling this week, like, I love my life. Like, I'm so grateful to be where I'm at. And I still have symptoms. But just that contrast from where I was, this time last year even is just dramatic. I would say the things that really helped me, this pattern of anxiety and intrusive thoughts has been something that I've dealt with my entire life. And so for me, using the tools that you gave through somatic tracking, and I did start working with a therapist. They kind of eased that, but I also wanted to figure out why I was having those things. Like, where did that start? What was that root? And so, reading like the Anxiety RX book and some of the IFS books really helped me to figure out, like, oh, this is why I'm thinking this way. This comes from trauma and childhood chaos, and other things. And so I think for me, figuring out that root was like very impactful to say, oh no, I'm not just this way because there's something wrong with me. No, there's an actual reason to this. And then gaining more tools on how to regulate those things and work through those emotions, and journaling and therapy, and just all the things you mentioned on your site. And then I also did start anxiety meds. I fought for a really long time to not do that because I just didn't want to. And there was an interview, I think Kim, who just talked about it being an act of self-compassion. And that was a big turning point for me. And I'm almost off of them. So that's really great. And then I think the other really big thing for me was in this season of homeschooling my son while working through recovery and recovering from anxiety even, was asking my community for help, asking my family and my friends to help take care of my son and even to help homeschool him in seasons. Because there were times when I just I couldn't even read a book, and so it was just really hard. There's one other thing I wanted to mention. I can't remember what it was. So those are my really big ones, but yeah.
I remember because you were in that dark place when you joined my group. So I very clearly remember, and I see a lot of people in distress. I mean, it is not something that I am a stranger to at all. So it is, but it still never fails to amaze and awe me when I see someone completely turn it around like you did. And it's just awesome to see it here now. It's because I probably have video footage of you from that time.
You probably do, yeah.
Thank you, Tasha.
Thank you.
All right, let's come to you, Janell. I know you wanted to say a word about anxiety as well.
Oh my goodness, I have so much. I feel like I'm watching the YouTube video. I'm literally writing down notes. Like, I feel like I've already gotten so much from what people are saying. So I'm like, yeah, let's keep going, guys, keep talking. But I just had a couple things I wanted to say because, like Tasha said, with the hell, I literally used that exact same that reference of when I was at the peak of everything going on. I literally think if there's a hell, it's that. It was like the isolation. And when I really think back on that time, it's the fear and anxiety. It wasn't necessarily the sensations, but those were so consuming. Those are what kept me in bed, that not knowing of what's going on. And so I think I just wanted to emphasize that the anxiety part of it, really truly is, like, for me, my experience was the driver of the sensations are not fun. I'm not saying that they are. It's just that the anxiety of that. And so the tools that we learn, the somatic tracking, the sitting, the understanding, the knowledge, I think that knowing that is so huge and so key to, and it takes time, but for me, that's like kind of what pulled it down. And I think too, I had such a distrust of my body for so long because I started my symptoms in 2022, but going through this has made me realize I've actually had symptoms since I was a child that would continue to come. So just not having a distrust in my body, but when you realize like you are not alone and that this is normal, this is not, something's not wrong with you, really helps with that. So it's just wanted to say, if you're in that high stake of anxiety, it will pass as you work through it, as you learn to understand. Again, that's where it helped me, was just understanding what was happening to me. And then also maybe then doing deeper dives about what's going on. And then I just wanted to add just a quick thing of, I just love so much that some of you said that your children, because my child was too young to really be like, hey, this is what I loved about this. I don't think she remembers, but I just think that is so beautiful that your children are literally the time. Like, that is incredible. I'm just so moved by that. And Tara, when you said that the balance and like you were showing him that you were taking care of yourself, like that's what he got out of that, that not that you weren't there, but you took care. I'm like gonna cry because I'm just so moved by your children, that they can see that like we went through like hell, all of us, and our kids see how hard it was and yet how much we've showed up. So I've got chills. I just thank you, all of you. I just think that was incredible too, that you thought to ask your kids what you took out of it, because it actually makes me feel like healed a bit too. So love you all, I guess.
So, what a perfect seg actually into what I thought we could end our conversation with, although we're not going to end just yet, everyone. I Several of you have talked about how this has changed you as parents. It's changed the goals you have as parents and how you show up as parents for your kids. And Janelle, I mean, you just spoke to that so beautifully. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to keep the conversation going, even though I just want to sit here and cry too. Um, so let's start with you, Andy, because you've spoken to this specifically. And then I'd love to hear from each of you if you'd all like to share this, because I think this has probably affected all of you in this way. So the question, Andy, in case I just went on too long between the question and right now, was something to the effect of, how has this recovery process changed the goals that you have as a parent or how you show up as a parent for your kids?
Oh, definitely. And I feel like if you're listening to this and you're totally in the fear and the really intense stage that everyone's talked about, this might feel a little unrelatable, but at some point in your recovery journey, maybe for everyone, maybe not for everyone, but for me, I came to see there was a big link with emotions and symptoms, and doing a lot of that work through the Steady Coach. I began to realize how much my life I'd spent disconnected from my own feelings and emotions, and I didn't have a good understanding of them, didn't have a good relationship with them. I was living in a lot of ignorance, and this recovery journey kind of lifted the lid on that. But I began to find it really hard to connect to my own feelings, and in a way, although there's been being a parent through this has kind of it's been a curse because of the impact it's had on my partner and on my son. The blessing within that is that for me, I re I struggled to feel emotions, but the gateway for me into that was to feel for my son, to feel what he was going through by having his dad suffering like this and how it was impacting him. And when I kind of tried to step into his shoes, then it really, you know, I was just in bits. And suddenly, I was able to connect. I was able to learn so much about emotions, which was a huge thing for me. And now is in the latter phases of my recovery is like it's the big thing for me. And kind of when I've come to that learning, it's made me look at my relationship with my son and see that although I've not been like our family setup isn't like that. My wife Nikki has done all the parenting, and I've just been at work. For quite a lot of Ryan's life, we've been 50-50, and so I haven't just been like the dad who comes along and does the fun stuff, but I kind of see in our relationship there still is that association that every time I'm with dad, my son's thinking, right, we're going to do something crazy, we're going to do something fun, and I see that like what I did in the past, I was so disconnected from my own feelings that our time together just became like a runaway mine train, and I was completely dysregulated, and so was he. And so a huge part of my journey now is trying to change that relationship so that I'm, with all that I've learned from this, I'm setting a better example on how to relate to myself and passing that on to him. So that's been that's actually a massive positive that I've taken from this journey, is that the amount I've learned and realizing how much I can now try and work towards being able to be a good role model for my son on all that stuff. So that's been a huge part, and is pretty much, the biggest thing that I'm working on now.
So beautifully said. Thank you. Jody, I was wondering if you had thoughts on this.
Yeah, was the question, how did this journey change your parenting outlook?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
adjacent to the like 3 different questions that I asked.
I don't know. I'll just go with it. This journey for me really started in terms of monumental change when I found you in January. So up until then, I was just navigating life dizzy. My motto was, I'll just do it dizzy. Or I'll just be dizzy till I can't function anymore. I just didn't know what was going on. Cue you and figuring out what was really going on. Started listening to your videos and getting on board. I was like, come on, brain, like we've got this. Then realizing after years of being dizzy and just basically living my life, parenting the way I was parenting, I didn't see anything wrong with that at the time. But jumping into the Steady Start program, for anyone listening who feels maybe a little bit stuck, I guess if they're watching this, they're a parent, there is this urgency behind you, because it wasn't like I was trying to get over the dizzy for myself. It was for people who were relying on me. I had I was pregnant at the time, and that was another mental stressor where I thought, I don't want to be stressed out because then that affects the baby. So let's kind of get a handle on this. So I had a lot of stressors, but the main one was I just kept charging forward through this journey and realizing that my motivation was my kids and my husband. But that's what lit the fire under me to get this situated. And I thought, I'm going to go all in, join the Steady Start program. And then I started realizing the emotional connection piece that I'll tag on to after Andy had spoken about that. I didn't know that that was my ticket to healing. I did not know that what I had been doing and running myself ragged through the years, which I still do. I'm still, I'm in a great place of recovery. I'm still doing a lot of things, but I'm doing it with different intention. And I talked about how I had a hard time slowing down. That does not mean that I can't go to dance drop off, sit in my car for 5 minutes and just take a moment and allow feelings of fear or anxiety to come in and sit with me. That in turn in my parenting was a massive shift this year. For example, my 13-year-old son was swimming for the state championship, basically for Colorado. And he is dealing with basically severs. It's a sort of like chronic condition in your Achilles tendon, but he has it in his hip, which is very rare. We got him imaging and nothing came about, basically just a little mild inflammation. And before he was going on for his big event, I could tell I was watching him and he was getting really nervous and doing a lot of things that I typically do when I have anxiety. And going through this program, I basically was able to identify it. And I just went straight to him and I said, what's going on? He's like, well, I'm in pain. I took him to a quiet corner and I basically said, no, what are you feeling? And he's like, well, I just feel, like I want to get this race over with. And I was like, no, what is the emotion you are feeling right now? And it was like this weird parenting moment for him and I, where he was like, well, I feel fearful. And I asked him, what does that feel like in your body? Can you name it? Can you tell me? So I started guiding him through this process of what's been so vital in my healing. And he went on and got 7th in the state for a 50 fly. I had to give him that time, and there were tears. And I said, do you need to cry? Let it out. Let's let it out. And for anyone watching that maybe is kind of like me, there was a point in my life for like probably a year and a half, I didn't shed a single tear. And I used to carry that with like pride. I was like, oh, I never cry. I'm fine. I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to keep barreling through. Like, tears, no, we're not going to do that. And now, well, especially postpartum, the hormones bring that up. And it was like the perfect time for me to say, now is my time to get involved with emotions, to bring that into my parenting journey, to not ignore, to not send someone to their room if they are crying, like to actually sit with them and say, what are you feeling? What does that feel like for you? And let's sit with that. We always make time now for those feelings to come through. And I've seen that's a huge shift in our household. And our household has a lot more like calm and trust, even though we are so busy.
Beautiful. Thank you. All right. Let's go to you, Meghan. How has your parenting changed?
Oh, those were all so good. I'm glad I didn't have to go when Andy went. I was like, okay, tears. We got it. But Jody, I was the same. I was like, I don't really cry. I clearly can process things really well. That's not processing things. So anyways, when I was prepping for this, in my mind, what kept coming up was children are a blessing. And I know that, but in neural circuit dizziness, children are a blessing. And I was a little information hamster when I found you, Dr. Yao, which is kind of that's what I do, is I research things, which that has gotten so much better too, with recovery. But I was going and I listened to like a year's worth of all the Q&As. And I just remember you saying something along the lines of, you don't want to have too much time on your hands. Like when you're stuck in the fear, in the avoidance, in all the dizzy and all the feelings, because you're just going to spiral. So you got to have something to do. And I think you said this, or I'm just thinking you did, that sometimes parents have a leg up because your kids force you to stay on purpose. You have to do things. You can't have sometimes too much time on your hands. And that struck me and changed my outlook, because there were times I felt like being a mom, but especially a homeschool mom, my kids were around me 24/7. Like they are a liability to my recovery because, oh my goodness, I can't get quiet. I can't get calm. Like nothing in my house stays clean. Like this is clearly not going to help me. And now I realize that it actually has been not only key to my recovery, but I think in the 5 years that it took me to find you, because I found you in January also, that they kept me seeing friends, driving, going to the grocery store, even though our big adventures was to go to the toy store or to go to the park or whatever, I kept moving and doing because of my kids. And I talked to my husband last night and I said, if we wouldn't have had kids and the dizzy would be going on, I was like, I think you would have challenged me a little bit. I go, but would you have just let me lay on the couch because I told you that's what I needed? He goes, oh, I totally would have enabled you. Sure. Like lay right on the couch, watch all the TV you want because you think you need more rest and so the kids were they were so huge in that. And I'm just so thankful. And then my oldest, this was a little while ago. So I binged as many videos as I could of yours and then joined at the end of January. And so I haven't been in the true NCD recovery process that long. And a few months ago, my daughter looked at me and she goes, Mama, sometimes I even forget that you're dizzy anymore. And it just struck me because I was like, I'm not pretending. Like she goes, we're doing so much more. You seem like you have more energy. You can do more things. And I just forget that you're dizzy. I was like, that's awesome because that means I'm recovering. And so even when I have a dip or I have an off day or whatever, like I can go back to some of those truths. And Tara, just like you said, like your son was like, you showed up. That really changed like just my perspective. If we could leave our bodies and our minds that spiral sometimes and see it from a different perspective, my goodness, like we've shown up a lot. And our kids maybe do not see the crazy fear and anxiety spiral. Mama did this. Daddy did this. That's so cool. And how it changed my parenting is I think a lot of the fear started when I had kids, and a lot of the anxiety. Like I have to care for them, and I took that on as being every ounce of their safety and protection and well-being is on my shoulders. I can't screw up or it's my fault. And I mean, I held it. And the reason, like, I know some of the reasons I got dizzy and it hit so hard was wearing that. Like, and when I was dizzy and as a Christian, I finally had to like release this to the Lord and say, Lord, this is not my responsibility. Yes, a part of it is, but their ultimate well-being is not my responsibility. And it happened in the major lows of dizzy because I was like, I can barely care for myself today. I'm so anxious. There was just panic or whatever. All I can do is just keep them alive at the bare minimum and like keep myself just going. And I had to release, I can't be with them every second. I can't watch everything that they do. And there was this separation of, I have to trust God for my kids. And there was a huge healing that happened within those couple years. And to have then, you talked about this, Dr. Yo, the like lived experience to say, you can take your foot off the gas a little bit and you're still a really responsible mom who pays a ton of attention to her kids. But you can also care for yourself, go do something. Like you can leave the house without them. You can give them to the responsibility of your husband, which was super hard for me. I'm like, then I'm not watching them. Like there was so much stress. Like that really filled my stress bucket. And now I can do even something like this. I'm like, they're watching TV because I didn't want them interrupting me, and be like, they're totally fine. They're good. That has really changed my parenting, just in like my internal heart. And then Jody, I can relate to of like, what am I learning? What is helping me? And I get to now teach my children to take thoughts captive, to renew their mind. What is truth? What are the emotions that you're feeling? And we can work through that instead of like, you can't do this. You know, we kind of just want to be like, to get maybe the behavior, from them. Like that wasn't good. Do the better thing. There's so much in between. What's going on? What are you feeling? How do we work through this? How is this a teachable moment that has both impacted my husband and I in how we want to raise our kids? And a lot of that is because of what I've gone through.
Beautifully said. Thank you. Now I'm going to come to you, Tasha. We're getting close to the end of our time together. And I want to hear from all three of you who are left. So let's keep it brief, but I really want to hear what you have to say. I know each of you has something special to share here. So Tasha, let's start with you, and then we'll come to you, Tara, and then finally Janell.
Yeah. Okay. I think my parenting journey has been one of letting go of perfection because I'm a perfectionist. Really changing that mindset to that B minus, C plus, not just for myself, but also just like in my expectations of him. I think I always had this expectation of like, you need to be above grade level and you need to be doing all of these activities and you need to be, blah, 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 whatever. Now I just see it as like, if we're faithful and we're continuing our journey with education or the things that you're working toward and you're doing your best, I'm okay with that. That's good. I'm good with that. I did take some notes because I wanted to share on this stuff. So I think I struggle with the mom guilt as, and dad guilt as all of us do. I think my biggest thing in parenting is I have a lot more self-compassion. The Kristen Neef self-compassion meditations, I think I'm saying her name right, was transformational for me in letting go of expectations of myself. Being a homeschool mom also, and having an only child, I think I always felt like I needed to make up for that lack of a sibling. Or the days that we couldn't have friends over, he could go to friends' houses. I felt like I needed to be on and predicting his needs and just being everything for him. I didn't realize the extent of that thinking in my parenting and how really detrimental it actually is, not just for him, but also for me. So learning to let him be bored and watching TV is okay. There were so many times in this journey where the showing up was us just sitting on the couch together, watching a show because I could not do anything else. And I just want to share this fun story because I think it's so cute. He's been a witness to my entire story of NCD. And I would literally just go outside and sit in a chair and watch him jump on the trampoline because I physically couldn't do it. And I remember the first time I climbed up on the trampoline and started jumping with him, he started crying because he was so excited that I was jumping with him. And so I just wanted to share that story. Like, it was so beautiful in our family story of how God's just been healing my body. And yeah, I think too, I've always been a person who could identify my emotions, but there's a difference from identifying your emotions and sitting with your emotions. And so through this journey of learning to sit with my emotions and actually feel them in my body, I am now teaching him how to do that. So we just started a new co-op this week. This week's been insanely busy. And on the way home from school, I was asking him how are you feeling? How did that first day go for you? And he was just like, I don't know. Like, I'm having all of these emotions, I was like, okay, can you name them? No, I don't want to name them. I'm like, okay, so, I think it was like Jody said, okay, where do you feel that in your body? It's in my chest. Okay, is it hot or is it cold? Is it heavy or is it light? What color is it? And so just walking him through self-regulation, that was something that I wasn't taught as a child. I think is just so beautiful in this. It almost feels like a 360 view of NCD for me, of getting to do that with him. Now he can tell me, like, he'll say, I'm not feeling regulated right now, Mom. I need a minute. I need to go sit down and calm myself down for a few minutes. So those are my big ones. I think just allowing myself to take breaks and have alone time for myself, not feeling guilty about that anymore. Needing to rest. I still have to take naps pretty regularly. And it's okay. I'm teaching my child that life isn't perfect and people have different needs. And as a family and as a community, like, we have to allow those things and it's okay. Look at my notes. I think those are my biggest things. Our pace of life is different too. Like Megan's, like we do a Sabbath on Sundays. We don't do electronics on Sundays and we don't really hang out with other people. We just chill as a family. And our week is starting to get really busy, which I didn't think I would ever be able to handle again. But having that weekend and that space to say, nope, if I need to rest, I can do that, So yeah, I think it's just a beautiful transformation of my thinking of, I need to be a perfect parent and I need to meet all of his needs and he can't see suffering and he doesn't need to witness these things. And I don't know how to help him regulate his emotions to what is now. So
Building resilience.
Yeah.
That this is how you build resilient kids, by showing them that things are not easy for you either, and that it's okay when you're falling apart, and that falling apart doesn't mean that everything ends right there. It means you fall apart, you pick yourself back up, and you go. So beautiful. Okay, so quickly, we'll come to you, Tara, and then we'll come to you, Janelle.
All right, I'll just read from my notes. um, how it's changed my parenting. I wrote down, show how to get through a crisis. Granted, my older son, it was older. He's turning 18 next month. So he's very around, aware, seeing the things that were happening. So that's a huge one for me. I continuously thought I have to show him how you deal with your world falling apart. If it's something else, it doesn't matter what it is. He's watching me go through a crisis right now. And I knew I couldn't hide it all. And I knew what I show him, he's going to take with him into the future of a piece of how someone navigates this kind of thing. And so, yeah, show how to get through a crisis was in the back of my mind constantly. And it wasn't just like, I need to show him, or I'm showing him what this can look like. It was also, I'm going to show my child that I can do this. And it helped me a lot. The moments that I could put myself aside and I could, in a way, make it about him. And when I'm gone, what do I want him to remember mom looked like? Meaning, like, what was the way that she went about navigating this? And hope that whatever it is that I showed him, he can use in a positive way in his own experiences at some point in his life. So that was really big for me. I certainly have many moments that I wish I could take back and, maybe overshared, or I feel like I showed too much sorrow. But now starting to come through the other side of this, I don't know. I don't know that I would take it back. I feel proud of the things that I've shared with him and the changes that we've made in our household and in the way that I exist, honestly, as a person. So, okay, I wrote down, show how to get through a crisis. I wrote down, you can fall and get back up and you can change. That was big. I know that a piece of it, as I started to realize that I've been living in a way I didn't want to live anymore, I wanted him to know that I wasn't like giving up these other things that I had built in my life, that I was choosing change, that you can go through 38, Janelle, I'm like, how old am I? 38 years of having one goal and saying, I'm this person, and then go, you know what? That's not who I want to be anymore. That's not working for me. And I've grown from that. I'm changing to this, and that's okay. It's not failure to change. And it really can feel like it. If, the effort you've put into your life, the effort you've put into your studies, your business, your relationships, like it feels like failure in a way to walk away from a lot of that. But sometimes that's what you have to do. And sharing that, talking about it in our household. My husband's not the biggest sharer and talker, so I have overshared and overtalked so much that he's like, oh, but I feel really good about it. I feel like my son knows me in a way that he never would have known me otherwise. And the last thing that I just wanted to add, just for the people out there that don't have religion to help them through this. I myself am not religious, and that we are not anti-religion by any means. We have lots of very religious family members, and that's wonderful in the ways that it helps them in their life. But being someone who doesn't have that going through this, there was an anchor that I felt like if I was religious, if I did have that spoke to me, it would be helpful. And I didn't. And I certainly didn't feel like I wanted to fake that. There were moments I thought about it. Maybe I'll become religious. Maybe this is the thing that will get me out of this. But it just didn't feel authentic for me. And I found myself searching for that anchor. And what I found for myself was in my life, the two people that I found this thing with was my mother and my oldest son. They have known me, well, my son's known me his whole life, but my mother has known me my entire life. And regardless of the ups and downs of our relationship, she oh, that makes me emotional. I kind of hid it from her. I didn't want her to know how far I had felt I'd fallen in this thing that was happening to me. And the moment that I called her and I said, I am not okay and I need help, I need your help. The moment I opened that door and she was present in this journey with me, she anchored me. And the same with my son in a different way. They know you, whoever this person may be in your life that knows you, they can see you, they can see when you're lying, they can see when you're faking it, they can see when you're not okay. Having that, especially with my mom, look at me and go, you're going to be okay. I can see what you're saying, I see what's happening, but you're going to be okay. You've got this, was absolutely like pivotal for me. So if someone, if it's not religion and you're searching, and if there's a person that you have like that, maybe it's worth a try, because it was the piece that I was missing at one point, was that anchor to really ground me back to who I am and what I can do, to what I'm capable of.
Beautifully stated. All right, Janell, let's come to you.
If I can get it, there we go. Okay, so for me, I think the biggest thing that I've realized is that I project a lot of my own things onto my child, or I did. I used to project even my like things that if I would have really thought about, I don't like necessarily, I want her to be this way, but I would project like being a people pleaser, or projecting being nice, or projecting no fear, that type of stuff that I felt that that was a value that I had as a child as well. And when you kind of like the underlying, I feel like a lot of us are saying, is being connected to your emotions, what's going on, was really pivotal in understanding that projection, understanding that it was even projecting at all. Something that I always thought, which I think Tasha said this as well, she always thought that, or I feel that I always thought I was very emotionally connected person. And obviously I'm emotional. I start crying. I've cried a lot this call, but I think what I didn't realize is that I really didn't understand my emotions. I didn't understand what was beneath them. And so this journey has totally gutted me from the inside out. And now when I see Clementine, my daughter, I guess I didn't, my daughter, when I can truly understand, or come from a place of wanting to understand what she's actually feeling, what's going inside her body, not projecting those, so we want to be afraid. We want to be strong. We want to make sure people like us. We want, all those things that I just realized I was doing and not even realizing it. Just, it really, really, that's probably been the biggest thing for me, is seeing things for what they are and actually what I want her to demonstrate, and feel confident in herself, that she can be any of those things, and not feel like she has to be anybody for anybody but for herself. So
Wow. What a wonderful way to finish off this conversation. You all are amazing. And as I said at the very beginning of this call, everyone listening, you got to hear from the experts themselves. Every single one of the people on this panel have been where you are, wherever you are in your recovery process right now, whether you are on the floor or doing better and not feeling great and pushing through. Everyone here has been where you are. It gets better. And as you just heard, your parenting can benefit from the recovery process, and your recovery can benefit from parenting. These things don't just need to be a stressor in the stress bucket. I get asked about this a lot. But I have to take care of my kids. It's just extra stress in my stress bucket. Does that mean I can't recover? No, because the way that you relate to your children affects how you deal with all stress. And you relating to yourself in a kinder way not only is something that you're teaching and modeling for your children, it affects how much stress you're taking on from all the ordinary parenting related things. Those things are not what actually stress you out. It's the projections, Janell, like you were talking about. It's the guilt, it's the what ifs, it's the I should be's. Those are the things that really stress you out. So I hope all of you listening learned something today, and just know you're not alone. We're here with you. These wonderful people are here with you. And if you have questions or comments for us, please drop them below if you're listening on YouTube. If you're not on YouTube and you're listening to this as a podcast, you're always welcome to drop by the YouTube channel to say hello and leave a comment. If you could also please like, share, subscribe to my channel. These things help me reach more people. Please also follow the podcast if you're listening to this as a podcast, and give us a 5-star rating. Again, would love to hear your feedback on how helpful you found this, and we will be certain to do more things like this in the future as well. All right. Thank you to all of you for joining us. Thank you. See you soon.